Focus. Follow one course until successful. Good business advice or a recipe for disaster? It could be either. I think it was Einstein who said, to continue to do the same thing and expect a different result is the definition of insanity. But then a pretty good way to send yourself mad is to try to do too much at once. Why am I so hot on focus? Well, I'm hot on focus because I am really, really bad at it. I get distracted very, very easily. Let me give you an example. I went on holiday to Egypt a while back with my wife. The purpose was to go and see all the ancient sites. And we've been before, so I decided that we weren't going to do the normal thing of going to the pyramids when we were in Cairo. We were going to do something different. We were going to go see some extra things. We were going to go to the market, and we were going to go to the citadel, the mosque on top of the city. After a very exciting morning, wandering around the streets of Cairo, including, we did get taken to the market by a very nice gentleman. Well, he took us to his uncle's shop. It was a kind of a market. We ended up at this roundabout underneath the citadel. So we were looking up at the citadel, couldn't figure out whether to go left or right, which way to go to get to it. And suddenly, we were surrounded by a horde of little kids, about 7 to 10 years of age, all clamouring at us. And I suddenly remembered that I'd been told that the Egyptian kids love ballpoint pens. So I brought a whole load with me, so I reached into my bag and pulled out a handful of ballpoint pens and held them up. And I have never been so scared in all my life. I was mugged for my pens. Not only the ones I was handing out, but every pen in the bag. Completely stripped out. A fortnight's worth of pens gone. And they scattered. All apart from one little lad. Who stood there in front of me, looking up at me. And he went, "Ben." Oh, "Hello, Ben. Nice to meet you, mate." He gave me this strange look. "Ben." "Ah, he means pen. Right, got it. Okay. No pens left. Sorry, your mates have all had them." "Yes, Ben." "No, Ben. All gone." "Yes, Ben." "No, Ben. All gone." And eventually I got so fed up with it, I grabbed a bag, I opened it up and held it out in front of him and said, "Look, no, Ben." And his little hand dived down into my bag, deep into the depths of the bag, and pulled out from the bottom corner of the bag the last remaining pen. And he held it up and he went, "Yes, Ben." Now that's what I call focus. Let me give you a bit of the science behind why focus is going to be important to you. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who wrote the book Flow, said that our senses are assaulted every moment of every day by something like 2 million bits of data. You've got 2 million bits of data coming at you, and you can only cope with 7 plus or minus 2 chunks, which is about 150 bits. How does the mind cope with that? It has 3 main filters that it uses. It distorts, it deletes, and it generalises. Generalise is it makes it like something it understands. So, table, for example. I don't need to go into a great load of detail about the table. Look at it, it's a table, ignore it. I know what tables are. Distort is I might see somebody frowning at me and I can conclude that they're unhappy. Somebody else might see somebody frowning and conclude that they're angry. And in reality, they're just concentrating. So distort is changing things to make them fit our model of the world. But the important one when it comes to focus is delete. It's the stuff that you delete that are going to make a difference to you. I'd like you to imagine for a moment that you are at the top of Miller's scale. You can cope with 9 chunks of information, 7 plus 2. And I'd like you to imagine that you're working on 6 projects right now. What that means is that for each of your projects, on average, you are getting 1.5 chunks of useful information. Yeah? 9 divided by 6, 1.5. Now, I'd also like you to imagine that you have a competitor. Not very hard for most of us. I'd like you to imagine that your competitor's a bit of a numpty. He's only operating at 5 chunks of information, 7 minus 2. But he is focusing on just one project, the one where he's competing with you. What does that mean? That means you're nearly twice as good as him at processing information, yet he is getting over 3 times as much useful information about that project. Who's going to win? Now, how do I decide what to focus on? What I use is the opportunity matrix. I've given you my simple demo version so you can see the grid. It's a simple 2-box matrix. It answers the 2 big business questions. How much do I want to do this? And will I make any money at it? That translates onto the grid into the attractiveness. How much do I want to do this? And viability. Will I make any money? Most people have one that's down in what I call bread and butter. Very viable. It's easy to do. You're already doing it. And it bores you to tears. For a lot of people, that's the job. Other people have one that's up in what I call needs work. Very exciting. You really want to do it. Absolutely passionate about it. And it's not very viable. Very low on the viability scale. What we're looking for are the ones that are high on both. What I normally tell people to do is to take the revenue from their bread and butter ones and feed that into their needs work so that they can make those more viable and move them across into just do it. And what strange thing is, what often happens is they then remember what it is they used to like about the bread and butter stuff, because most people start to do something because they kind of like it, and that starts to drift up as well towards just do it. But I do remind them that they got bored with it once, they'll probably get bored with it again. So that's the simple model that I use. I'm a consultant, we love 4-box matrices. So, back to Cairo. My little mate Ben. What did he do? He did his research. He knew that it was viable for him to get a pen. He knew that it was possible. He knew he wanted it, and he stuck to his guns. He focused on what he wanted until he got it. Meanwhile, my wife and I, we'd spent the vast majority of the day wandering around Cairo, getting distracted by this, by that, by the guy who took us to his uncle's shop. By the time we finally got up to the Citadel, we were tired. We were grubby. We were grumpy. We just had a cursory look around and then jumped in a taxi and went home. We'd wasted an inordinate amount of time getting distracted by stuff that wasn't what we really needed to be doing. And I see that happening so much, particularly in early-stage entrepreneurs. So if you know early-stage entrepreneurs, tell them to get focused. I urge you to tell them to get focused. Find out what their focus is, find out what they enjoy, and they can do well, and then just follow one course until they are successful.